are doing Supernatural Season 4. We're reviewing it, giving it a good old talk, and oh boy, I love Season 4 of Supernatural. They do so much for Season 4 of Supernatural. Now, I've been thinking going ahead that, I may do the format a little differently after Season 5. The good, the bad and the ugly will sort of be taken out and sort of just replaced with me just talking about the series, talking about my favourite episodes and my least favourite episodes. That is how I'm thinking of going forward after Season 5. So Season 6 onwards will not be as broad stroked. It will not be as detailed. Maybe not even very well done, to be honest with you. But the way I'm doing it, we'll keep it for that for now. It's just as I've written it. So, of course, we start with the good, the bad and the ugly. And where to start with the good, the bad and the ugly? We start with the good, as we always do. This season is not good. It's great. Season 4 we have the introduction of Castiel, one of the best characters in the whole series. Some people, some fans, and I can't, I understand where they're coming from, but some fans actually say he's the best character in the whole show. And he's the most well-developed one. For me, I can see where you're coming from. But Dino is Dean is the best character for me, I'm very biased. I love Dean as a character. But Castiel comes in here, another great character, and he's definitely third to Sam, being second, for me as characters go. But, oh my god, this season does so well. And let's get into the good. And the first episode in this series that I want to talk about is not actually on my list of good, bad, or ugly. And it's the second episode. Are you there? God, it's me, Dean Winchester, I think it's called. I will put some corrections in there. In this episode, we get the return of some dead characters in here, like Henriksen, something which I talked about on last Friday's video when I talked about Season 3. And the slow death. As I said, this is not on my list of episodes I want to talk about. So I am going to be quick with this. But we get Ron and his laser eyes. He comes back. The original Meg comes back. And the creepy twins, for Bobby's case, are also in there. Something we never saw before in the series. I love this episode. I didn't put it in my list simply because it's not something that, it's a very small episode within this series, but I do think it's well worth a talk, and it does feel right within the season, and it's definitely Season 4. I hope I haven't gone with Season 5 here. It's definitely one of the breaking of the seals, isn't it? Yeah, it's the breaking of the seals. So yeah, I just think, sometimes you say things and it's from something else. But yeah, great episode. Absolutely loved it. But we are, of course, talking into what I've got on my list. I keep looking down because my list is right there. So I apologise if you're seeing that. But the first episode I really do want to talk about in this series, where there's a bit more detail to it, is in the beginning. In the beginning, we get Dean thrust back into the past, and Castiel's like, yeah, you got to stop it. And it's like, stop what? And we go back to a time before Sam and Dean were born, before Mary and John were married, and it's very Back to the Future, like Dean meets John Winchester for the first, as a kid, about the same age as Dean at that point, and they go and get the car, and there's such great story beats in this. We meet for the first time Samuel and Deanna, the parents of Mary Winchester that Sam and Dean are named after, and it's just such interesting story to watch as it plays out, because you also get the whole thing about yellow eyes, and you find out so much more that you did not know beforehand. For instance, it's technically all Mary's fault when you really think about it. And when you go back to the beginning, which is what we do in this episode, it's Mary Winchester's fault. The stuff with the demon blood and Sam and Dean having to go into hunting, it's all because of Mary Winchester. And you know, it gives you a bit of a shock factor that Mary Winchester was a hunter. Mary Winchester was the first Winchester, like real Winchester hunter. Of course, she's a Campbell at this point, but she was the first true Winchester hunter. Now, from the point of view of the series at this point, when you go linear with it, you actually think John's the first of the Winchesters to hunt. But as a matter of fact, it was Mary. And then she gave it up to have kids. And then, of course, you know the story. But, like, this is why I love this episode. They do everything right, you know, to give us more. You know, it's going back in time. So you're sort of thinking, okay, we're not going to get much of a push forward of the series and the series overall and the story overall. But no, you're completely wrong. Going back in time actually gives us more information than we actually have currently in the future or in the present. And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant episode. It's a brilliant story. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, that's in the beginning. That's the big thing, you know. It shows that Mary had the demon as well. There's a demon deal with Zazel. Zazel's in this, yellow eyes. And it's just so mad to think that Mary Winchester made a deal to bring John back. You know, her parents are dead at this point, but to bring John back, and that in a year later he'll go and get, you know, not a year later, 10 years later, he goes to get Sam for the demon deal, like the demon blood storyline. And oh my god, that's a big thing. That is a big thing to do, you know? To go back in time and basically say, oh no, it wasn't Sam's fault, or, you know, that it was actually to do with Mary. And wow, you know, they do so well to reveal it so early on in the season. But moving on, okay, and now we get into some episodes that are fun. The next 3 episodes are kind of fun episodes, you know? They're the fun, supernatural, meta-human. Yeah, it's not the Flash we're talking about. We'll get to that at some point during the channel. No, the meta talk within the series sort of comes from these 3 episodes a little bit. These first 2 not so much, but the big one is later on. But Monster Movie is one of those episodes you start watching it and it's like, oh, okay, it's going to be black and white all the way through. What the hell are we in for here? And you don't think too much of it, you know? It is a very simple story. It is a very based down hit story that doesn't do much, but yet still gives you enough that you absolutely love. That I love this episode, Monster Movie. For very different reasons too in the beginning. In the beginning I love because of the story and because of the character development. Whereas Monster Movie I love for the way it does things and the brotherly love that I think really does crop up here as well. And when I say brotherly love, I don't mean the I love you too sort of lovey-dovey thing. I mean the bickering and the, you know, the banter that these boys have. Don't get me wrong, it's been there in the past in boatloads. It's not the first episode they do it, but they do it in this episode, and I think it's brilliant. The black and white thing works well as well with the story, because you have a shapeshifter, you know, who wants to do movies, mashup movies, that sort of thing, like, you know, the Frankenstein and the Dracula and the Nosferatu sort of thing, the original Wolfman and Mummy and all this. I love that sort of era of horror movies, you know. I love those kind of horror movies. While I have moved into more of the slasher realm, as I got older, those movies were movies that I grew up on, you know. And that's why in this episode I love it. I love seeing it. And I just think the story just does it justice with how it works and things like that, and the banter and little that. It's very, as I say, this episode, you sort of think of the series overall. Or when you digest this season alone, Monster Movie might not be one that brings out a sort of sort of thing of, yeah, it's amazing. It's certainly not an amazing episode. Some people don't like the whole thing that it's black and white all the way through, and I think maybe it's too simple of a story. Maybe it takes 2 steps back rather than 2 steps forward, or something like that. You know, for me, I enjoy the ride. You know, what I think with Supernatural, and what I think is the most important thing to talk about when you talk about Supernatural, is that even the episodes that are bad are good. Even the episodes that are bad, you can still find good things in them. Apart from one episode in this season that actually pisses me off. But anyway, that is Monster Movie. The next one I want to talk about, Yellow Fever. There was no way I was going to talk about season 4 without Yellow Fever to talk about. Come on. You know, I had the tiger scratching, the snake, the dog, just the high, you know, there was just a heightened state for Dean to be scared. And it freaking works. You know, this is an absolute brilliant storyline. You know, it takes the Dean that we know and love and sort of flips him on his head. You know, the tough, the no, you know, takes no shit sort of Dean that we have for the rest of the series and the series so far has been turned into this, you know, insufferable little kid who's scared of everything. That's what he gets turned into. You know, he's on the 3rd floor in their hotel room. Sam goes to try and find him at ground floor. You know, and we have to go. You know, we have to do some blooper reel sort of thing at the end of this episode, which shows Dean doing the Eye of the Tiger, and it's just phenomenal. You know, it is literally one of those things. You know, you get lists. You know, like Top Mojo and things like that. Those channels, the top 10 list things. If there is ever going to be the top 10 behind the scenes moments, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. There isn't a video because it is the best thing to come out of a blooper reel ever. And I absolutely love it. And I love Jensen Ackles for it. And I love Dean for it, you know. Dean is my man crush, if we're going to go there. Just to beat the comments. I do love Dean. Not that way. But I love Dean as a character. But this does... Just this episode solidifies that for me. That Dean is my favourite character throughout. But the big episode that I have to talk about that I absolutely love in this season, the absolute cream of the crop, and I think later on seasons actually make this episode better with the revolution that comes out later on. But it is, of course, the monster at the end of this book. What an episode. What a meta episode to get within this series. Like I said about the meta thing of, you know, the banter sort of thing that we have in Monster Movie and Yellow Fever, but then this is up to 11. You know, there is nothing that you could say that is bad about this episode for me. Again, another simple story thrown away and given a completely new look. You know, shows before have always tried to do the meta thing of within the series. People talk about it. The Flash. I know The Flash came after Supernatural initially when it started. They do a sort of thing where, like, you know, it's Flash Day and everything like that. And that works within that series. But when you take a series and you sort of take a step back and start to think like fans do, and then you start to write that stuff into the show, and it's done wonderfully. There isn't. How can you complain about it? It's done so well. and I absolutely love it. The monster at the end of this book is an example of that. There are episodes later on in the series that absolutely solidify this episode as being one of the best because it doesn't reveal a big thing about this episode. This episode gives you the start of the God storyline. You know, some people might think that, oh yeah, we've got angels, but why wasn't God there when the angels were introduced? He was. He was there all along. The fact that Chuck is God makes this episode even better than what it already is. This episode is just brilliant anyway. But to make Chuck God later on completely changes the way you look at this episode and improves on it. I absolutely love the monster at the end of this book. The whole thing of Sam and Dean going on a hunt at the start, and then they come across the books, and then they go from the developer of the books or the publisher of the books trying to find the writer, and then they go from the writer to the fact that he's a gospel, the book of the Winchesters, you know what I mean? It's a gospel book of the Winchesters that he's writing because he's a prophet of the Lord. To then go away from that episode and discover that that first prophet that was ever introduced was actually God. What? It's amazing, and I absolutely love it. As you can see, I'm probably gushing way too much on an episode that's probably actually a lot smaller than the ones I've already mentioned. But for me, it's one of the most important episodes of the series. Because we get God's introduction without knowing that you're getting God's introduction if you've never watched the show before. I would love to go back and rewatch the show and find out that he was God without hearing the bloody theories online saying he's God. You know? Sort of takes it away. The whole thing about, watching YouTube and watching YouTube videos on your favourite shows when you're still watching them is a little bit divided, because you get theories through those videos, you get theories online, on Facebook, on Twitter. The theories come out, he's God. And, one of the theories for this was one of the biggest things in Supernatural, when talking about Supernatural, is that God was always there, sort of thing. And it's sort of, it's true. We're moving on to the bad now. And, Leo said about an episode that pisses me off. That was wrong. It doesn't piss me off. I just don't like this episode. And when I sit through it, I find myself really bored. And it is Chris Angel is a douchebag. I just can't get around this episode. I struggle with this episode. I don't know why. I don't know if I'm the only one out there. But I don't like it. At all. And my markdown is based on this episode. The reason why I've marked this series at what I've marked the series is at is because of this episode. And what is wrong with this episode? I don't know. I can't even bring myself to talk about it. I just don't like it. It is the only episode of Supernatural I actually don't like through and through. Yes, usually you can find some snippets of stuff in the episode, and you do. And that's to do with the relationship with Sam and Dean, but I did not like this episode. And it's a shame. It really is. Because I love Supernatural. So I'm going to move on now to the ugly side of the series. And the ugly side of the series, of course, is Sam. And the fact that he has been manipulated like a son of a bitch by Meg. Meg, leave him the fuck alone. Oh my god, this was one of the things that when I was watching the show for the first time, and I hit back with the monster at the end of the book, and I watched it through to the series finale of season 4, and oh my god, did it shock me. I was one of the few people that did not think, I was completely lost with the Meg thing, Some people say they see it coming from a mile off, and when I rewatch it, it's so obvious. But at the time of first time watch, it was not obvious. Meg was not a problem until the last episode where it was revealed that she was, and she was a manipulating bitch. and it shocks me every time. This series, for me, and this season alone, is what this season alone gave me the this is my favourite series sort of thing. It's because of this season. Season 4 is an amazing season of TV. It's not the best season of Supernatural by far, but it does things right. From the introduction of the angels and bringing Dean back to life. You know, when Castiel saved Dean, when he brought him, you know, back from perdition. Sorry, my brain is fried talking about Supernatural so much. But I love what they do in this season, and I love this season. However, I have to give it a score, and fuck you, Criss Angel, and your douchebaggy ways, because if it weren't for that episode, this is a 10 out of 10. But because of that episode, I'm marking it down by 1 to 9 out of 10. The 9 is for the rest of the series. The 1 is for Criss Angel as a douchebag. I'm sorry. It's the one episode of Supernatural I hate. I don't know why. For me, it just brings everything down. And then we brought back up with seasons, episodes 8, but thank God for that. But for me, it's the worst episode of Supernatural. Some would say it's bugs. Some would say, you know, it's the Leviathan storyline. But for me, it's Criss Angel is a douchebag. I'm sorry. That is just my opinion. You know, do not hate me for my opinion. It's just what I think. But anyway, we're at the end of season 4 now. We're moving on to season 5. You might think I'm getting through these fairly quickly at the moment, in the sense that I'm recording, as you know, I recorded the last one today, and I'm recording in the next season today. And you might think, well, is he really given enough time to really think about it? But I love Supernatural enough that I'm not going to get certain storylines mixed up until maybe season 10, 11. You know, anything after season 10, anything after season 11 even gets a bit muddled. Because I start to think, when's Jack introduced? When does this happen? When does that happen? You know what I mean? So, yeah, I might get to the point where season 12 onwards is a little bit more where I'm sort of not giving as much detail as I am now. But that's just down to rewatching. When I rewatch it, seasons 1 to 10 are in here like nothing else, you know? And parts of season 11 is. But season 12, 13 and 14 not so much, because they're more recent, you know? Eventually I will get to a day where I absolutely know everything about there is to know about this season. But I absolutely love Supernatural, as you know, and we are continuing the train on the Supernatural talk. Season 4, not Thor, 4. Season 4, we're all done. I've been Scrivo, this has been Scrivosphere. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, folks.